Okay. All right. So according to my phone here, it's 4:15. So I'd like to call to order the Monday, April 27th, the meeting of the St. Joseph County Public Library Board. And we're meeting today remotely in accordance with the governor's executive order that permits and directs us to meet in this fashion. So first, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us like this today. And the first thing we're going to do is determine a quorum. So I'm going to call each of your names. And when I call your names, if you can just identify yourself and just indicate that you have received and were able to access the board packet. So first, and I'm just going to do this alphabetically based on your last names, if I get that right. So Marvin, did you, if you can say hello, and Rachel, you want to unmute Marvin?
Marvin Curtis, I received the packet. I'm here.
Great. Michelle Engel?
She's muted too.
I'm here. I received the packet. I have it open on my screen.
Great. Augie, Frida?
I'm here. I did receive the packet and all is well.
Great. Christine?
Hi, I am here and I did receive the packet.
Terry?
And the packet's here and we're ready.
Great. And Anne?
I'm here and I'm muted.
Okay. But you got the packet and you're all set?
Yes.
Great, perfect. All right, and I'm here and I did receive the packet. Also, we'll be hearing, thanks to everybody staff for participating, but Deb Fuda, Executive Director, you're here and can hear us? Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't get myself to unmute there, but yes, I'm here.
Oh, my wife just pointed out that I didn't identify myself. So I'm Alan Feldbaum and I am here. Terry's cooking in the background. So I'm not sure if that counts for the minutes. And then Nancy, our fiscal officer and chief financial officer, Nancy.
Yes, I'm here and I have the bill list open in front of me.
Great. And Sarah Hill, our chief resource officer. Sarah?
Yes, I'm here and I have the packet.
Yeah, and finally, Kara Yeomans, same. You're our human resource person and you're here and can hear us and all.
Yes, I am here. I can hear you and I have a packet.
Great. And finally, our legal counsel, Jim Master.
I'm here. I can hear everybody.
All right, great. So I'll declare a quorum. We're all here together. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on February 24th. That was included in the board packet. So is there a motion to approve the, and I tell you what, for a motion to approve, why don't you raise your hand if you're gonna, okay. So I noticed Augie raised his hand to make a motion, and Christine's giving us the peace sign to second. So motion made by Augie and seconded by Christine. So I think we're gonna go ahead, we are gonna go ahead and roll call it. I don't know, Rachel, if you can unmute all of us, but basically I'll just go through this quickly. Marvin, are you?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
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 Christine?
Aye. Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So the minutes are approved. All right. So next is our director's report. And you recall that Deb did send us a written report giving us the basically 2 items of business. In addition to all the information that's included in the board packet relating to the checkouts and the people that have actually come into the library, the different branches, and all the statistical information, which is in our board packets. We've also received an update on the main library project. And let me just point out that the main things with that main library project is that we have gone through, okay, Terry, you'll have to, I apologize for that. Asbestos remediation, we got a report on that. We got an update about demolition with respect to the main, it's taking place inside the main library. and other things relating to the project moving forward. And we know that their bids are out right now for bid group 6, and those bids are going to be open Friday, May 8th. So that's the main library project is continuing as appropriate under the governor's order. And then there's also a fairly extensive library services update, which I'm not going to repeat, but we got a good update from our executive director on plans going forward here. So let me first ask, are there any questions from anybody regarding anything that was contained in Deb's report? Or Deb, is there anything you want to add to your report?
I don't think so. You'll notice that you have statistics for February and for March, and February looks fairly normal. March, we closed on March 16th, so March looks terrible, and I would anticipate that April will look worse. So we're kind of throwing our statistics out the window for now. But if there's any questions you have about absolutely anything, there's a lot going on, even though we're closed. So please feel free.
I do have a question, and it is about the renovation project. I drove by and saw that there was a lot of activity going on. Are we still pretty much on schedule?
We lost, I think, a little bit of time because of the asbestos, but not a lot. We're still pretty close to being on schedule. I think, depending on how manufacturing goes in the future, we could lose some time coming up on things that need to be delivered. But for right now, we're okay.
Okay. Are there any other, and basically it looks to me like everybody here is just as board members and our executive staff. So if there's any other questions anybody wants to ask, I mean, you could ask anyway, of course, but if there are any other questions anybody wants to ask regarding these, the kind of what's going on or how we're intending to open things up, feel free to do so. If not, is there a motion to, just somebody raise their hand, is there a motion? Marvin makes a motion to approve the director's report. Is there a second?
Michelle seconded.
Okay, Michelle seconded, okay. And then why don't we just go through again, just unmute, and I'll just go through and just to do this. I think we've been asked to do this for everything. So Marvin.
Aye.
Michelle.
Aye.
Augie.
He's muted.
Aye.
Okay. Christine.
Aye.
Terry. Okay. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Ann.
Aye. Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, so the next order of business is the library bill list for April 27th. So is there a motion to approve all of the accounts payable vouchers that are set forth on the register of accounts payable vouchers that were included in our board packet? Is there a motion to approve? Ann voted, made a motion, seconded by Christine. Is there any discussion, any questions for Nancy regarding that? Or Nancy, any updates or anything you want to point out in particular regarding the accounts payable vouchers or bill list?
Well, I always like to bring something up. This bill list you can see is the very beginning of construction payments. So our first page of claims shows claims from Bully and Andrews. And then there were also a couple of larger claims for Baker Tilly and Barnes and Thornburg for issuing the most recent bond issue. On the following page, there are several other construction invoices that we've paid. About middle of the page, Green Demolition, and then further down, Larson Danielson and Mechanical Concepts. Overall, it was about $350,000 in payments for the building project. I expect that only to increase. So it's just the beginning. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Go ahead, Terry. Terry, you want to unmute?
Yeah. The asbestos, this may be for Deb too or anyone else. Probably not much of a surprise. What kind of impact did that have on cost, or was it anticipated in some way?
It was not anticipated. I really thought that the asbestos had been remediated. Are we getting? I'm hearing it on my end.
Oh, yeah, I'll mute my.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it's coming from. There.
I think it might be coming from Terry, just FYI.
Okay. I thought I remembered that all of the asbestos had been remediated when we did the project 30 years ago, and most of it had been. What had happened was that we had 9-inch floor tile, and it was, when they tested it, it was on the verge of having no product in it. We took the safe route, and so we assumed that it was less than 1%, I think, of asbestos, but we remediated. It was on all 3 floors, and it was the original tile from the 1960 building that had been encapsulated when we did this the project 30 years ago. It came in. I'm trying to remember. We got quotes. It was around 120,000, I think. So not anticipated, but not terrible either. That answers your question.
It does. In my career, I never did a renovation project that didn't find asbestos, so not too surprised. My record's clean.
But we had the crews working at night, so the demo crews could come in during the morning, and they did not cross paths. So if the asbestos removal was going on the 3rd floor, then the demo crews were working on the 1st floor. And so we were able to keep both things going at the same time. So it worked.
Are there other questions regarding the bill list or anything related to that? If not, I think there was a motion and a second, so let's just go ahead and do a roll call if there's no further discussion. And I'll just go through the same order again. Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay. All right, so we've approved the bill list. The next order of business, item 6, is personnel changes. You'll see there that we're being asked today to approve the list of furloughed employees, the list of furloughed employees that are identified in the report, as well as the hiring of 1 employee and to also approve the resignation of another employee. So first, is there a motion to approve these personnel changes? And is there a second? Okay, great. Augie voted or made the motion, and Christine seconded. Are there any questions regarding these changes? Appearing to be none. If we're ready for a vote, I'll go ahead and just do that. And then, Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. And then we're also being asked to approve a confidential emergency leave request under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. So is there a motion to approve this confidential emergency leave? Motion made by Marvin. It looks like Christine, again, you got in there to second it. So you're great on that seconding. So is there any discussion regarding this emergency leave? If not, we're ready to vote. Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, so that's also approved. That's all the personnel changes, I believe. Okay, so the next order of business is, I guess the next thing is a report of special committees. So let me just note right now that there were no special library board committee meetings held during the past month, so there are no special reports. With respect to unfinished business, item 8, we've got a recommendation of an additional bid award. And you'll recall that a few months ago, bids were opened and we approved many bids for the main library addition and renovation project, but there were still several open items. And today we're being asked to address its bid group 5A roofing. And in particular, we've got a report here from Boley and Andrews, as well as a legal opinion or a copy of a letter from Jim Masters to an attorney that giving us an update on what was going on. And the Boley and Andrews, which is our senior project manager, is recommending that we award bid group 5A roofing today to Midland Engineering. So let me ask, is there a motion that we to award bid group 5A to Midland Engineering? Ann voted yes, and Christine got in there to second, I assume. So motion, boy, our telephone's ringing quite a bit today, I apologize. Motion made and seconded. First of all, are there any questions concerning Midland Engineering's bid?
Alan, could I just make one comment too? When you get back to looking at that, the last page before Jim's opinion,
right,
you'll see a list of all of the bids that have been awarded so far and what's kind of out there. And you can kind of see we're still on budget at the moment. I expect we're going to go over a little bit when we get into bid package, bid group 6, which opens in a week or two. But right now, this is looking pretty good.
Okay, great. All right. Are there any other questions concerning this Boley and Andrews recommendation or any related items regarding the construction right now? Please. If not, if we're ready to vote to approve Midland Engineering for roofing. Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The under new business, we've got a few things. So first, we got this. I'm going to call it an omnibus, a major resolution put together by Jim with input, a lot of input from Deb. And what I'd like to do with this is I'm not going to repeat the recitals, but there's 13 different items, and I think we'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention each of the items that we're going to be addressing here, because it's not just one topic, and so we can't just do this kind of by title. So if you'll just indulge me for about 2 or 3 minutes, let me go ahead and just summarize what's in this 5-page resolution. So there's 13 items. The first item relates to the closure of the library, and what we're being asked to do here is we're going to be ratifying and approving the decision of our executive director to close the library from March 16th through May 4th, and as that may be further extended pursuant to the future governor orders. So that's the first thing we're doing. The second thing we're doing is we're suspending our regular monthly meetings in accordance with Governor Holcomb's executive order, but we will be conducting meetings as necessary to make decisions or to provide for essential services that are critical to the operation of the library during this emergency. That's the second thing. The third thing is we're approving the procedure for conducting these remote board meetings. And then the fourth thing we're doing is we're ratifying the decision of our executive director to pay employees for regularly scheduled hours and regular employee benefits or employment benefits for the period March 16th through April 11th. And then the fifth thing we're doing is we're authorizing our executive director while the library is closed to the public during this health crisis, to determine which employees may be required to work in their homes or at a library building when needed to maintain the basic library services and operations. Next, 6 were asked to ratify all of the employee furloughs that are as determined by our executive directors for employees who are unable to work from home and who are not essential to maintaining our buildings and services. And we're also ratifying the policies pertaining to matters relating to benefits for furloughed employees. The next item, 7, is we're adopting a COVID-19 emergency family and medical leave and paid sick leave policy. You'll recall that you noticed that policy goes on for about a page and a half, and it's fairly extensive, and that's in there. And if you've got any questions on that, we can discuss those. And then the 8th thing is we're going to amend our library emergency closure policy to expressly include foreclosures during emergencies such as this that are required by federal, state, or local authorities. The 9th thing is we're going to authorize our executive director, while the library is closed to the public during this health crisis, to provide for the payment of library vendors and service providers. Then the 10th thing we're doing is we're going to authorize our executive director to implement a plan for library employees to assist patrons in preparing and filing for various governmental filings and claims by using library computers and other equipment remotely without personal contact. So there's some releases and things that I think council suggested that we have to sort of protect our employees. So we're going to be approving that remote service to patrons. The 11th thing is consistent with the written consent resolution, which each of you signed last month. We're going to ratify our executive director's decision to extend the due dates for library materials to May 5th and to waive late fees. And also when the library reopens, we're going to authorize our executive director to waive fax service fees for patrons to facilitate their filing of various claims and governmental filings as she just deems appropriate and for the length of time she deems appropriate. The 12th thing we're going to do in this resolution is we provide for the continuation of the library, the main library's expansion and renovation project, consistent with the, it as permitted by the governor's executive orders. And finally, the 13th thing is we're going to approve a provision providing for the method of recording votes for this meeting, which is this roll call votes we've been going through. So those are the various items that are here. So first, let me ask, is there a motion that we, this is in writing here, but is there a motion that we approve this resolution? Terry votes, makes the motion. Christine again gets in there to second it. So first, are there, Deb, are there any discussion or are there any questions anybody has?
I wanted to just call your attention to the filing for aid for patrons. This has been something that the state level has been trying to get accomplished. And what we want to do is go ahead and help people file for SNAP or TANF or health insurance or any of the other social services that are out there. The governor just, I think, expanded that today in his press conference. And be able to limit our own liability for doing that. These are things we would do automatically if our buildings were open, but to do them over the phone requires us to take a lead, I think, in handling some of those services. So I just wanted to let you know that's coming, and we're anxious to get started on that.
Okay. Any questions regarding any of that or anything else here regarding this omnibus resolution?
Deborah,
Yes.
if you take these applications over the phone, do you anticipate reading a statement to the patron along the lines of what's in the resolution, that the library doesn't have liability for the accuracy of the information they give us or give you, and that you're not guaranteeing in any way that they're qualified for or eligible or will receive the benefits they're applying for? You're going to read that in a statement?
That makes it a lot easier. We were talking about that this morning, whether we could just read it to them and have them acknowledge it, or whether we would need something either via email or writing to that they acknowledge that we don't assume that liability. But if you're okay with us doing that verbally, yeah, well, we can read that statement.
Yeah, when we talked about this before, I thought you were going to be doing this by email, or they would sign on to a screen of some sort, and if they signed on, you would have a statement saying, by using this computer, you agree to these things. But if you're going to do it over the phone, I would suggest having a card and just read it to them and have them acknowledge it.
We can do it in any number of ways. So we can do it on the phone. We're also doing Zoom meetings like this with one-on-one, so we can walk a patron through it. But in some cases, people don't have a computer and need this assistance. So in that case, we would have to file for them, and then we could read it to them. So yeah.
Okay.
The only thing, we've got all these lawyers here, like Michelle here and I were on the board. Only thing is that, Deb, what we want to try to make sure we do, and if we're doing that, is we ought to come up with one consistent thing. So if we're going to read them, that we just have to make sure that's in the ordinary course of business, that we absolutely do it every time, and we tell staff they're not to vary from it. We can just be able to, sort of say, this is how we always did it. And so if we don't actually get something back to them, that it's something that our staff just has to routinely just make sure that they do it same way, same time, every time, just to,
Yep, agreed.
Sure, okay. All right. So are there any other, Jim, is there anything else you want to bring up regarding this or anything in the resolution?
No, I think we've covered it. I see Sarah and Trish both shaking their heads, so they know they're going to take care of it.
Okay, great. All right. Well, if there's no further discussion, then maybe we'll just go through with motion having been made and seconded. Let's just go through the roll call. Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Aye.
Christine?
Aye. Aye.
Terry?
Terry.
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, so the next, Nancy, now it's your turn here for one of your favorites here, the non-resident fee car rates for 2020. You want to go ahead and just tell us about this little increase here?
Certainly. I guess I get a lot of annual things that you all and policies you need to approve. The state requires that library boards approve the non-resident operating fee charge annually, and it's based on per capita spending. We are slightly out of compliance this year. The current fee is $80, and when we calculated the per capita expenses, it was $80.49. But to make it simple, we are recommending that the fee be increased to $85. Hopefully this will keep us in compliance for more than 1 year.
So is there a motion to increase the 2020 non-resident fees from $80 to $85? And Marvin said, voted or made the motion, and Ann seconded it. Christine doesn't second things when it raises taxes. That's our Republican over there. So anyway, all right. Are there any discussion? All right, well, let's go ahead and just take the roll. Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
The rice is done.
No, it's
started. Oh, the rice is started. Okay. Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye. Aye.
Terry?
Terry.
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So we've got the non-resident fees. The next order of business, we received today a proposed lease modification for Music Village. Jim, do you want to explain, or Deb, do you want to just explain what we're doing here? And either one of you, go ahead.
I was going to say, go ahead, Jim, if you want to. Let me kick it off and just say that the Music Village had contacted us about some kind of rent relief because they're not able to do any kind of music lessons in person. They're taking it online, but they've lost a lot of business and a lot of revenue. And so they were asking for some kind of temporary relief to help them get through this period, as so many nonprofits are doing. So Jim and Bob have been working to craft a modification to the lease, and then I'll just kick it to you, Jim.
Well, they asked for a deferral of the rent. Well, that's what we ended up. Originally, they asked to have the rent just completely forgiven, which we thought was not in the public's best interest. So what we're doing is agreeing that for May, June, July, August, September, and October, they won't pay their rent. However, for the remaining 38 months of the lease, they will pay a prorated amount of the rent. So we're increasing their rent every month after that. And in order for it to work out, we're extending the lease by 6 more months. And there are a few other little details they asked for. For example, when the rent is increased by its terms, the increase does not apply to the deferral amount, which is fine. But we thought this was the best way to go about it and still protect the public interest by not just forgiving the rent, but deferring the payment and allowing them to spread it out over the remaining term of the lease. And Bob has worked with Noah Davey, who's the broker representing the Music Village, and they've all agreed to these terms. And so, of course, the first step is for you to approve it. If you approve it, then their board will sign off on it.
And I'll point out too, it does provide that even though they're not paying rent, they do pay for the expenses. Right, so they'll still pay utilities and the like.
They'll pay their utilities, right?
Right. Okay. So first, is there a motion to approve this lease modification with Music Village? Somebody raise that? Do I see somebody's hand to do it? Okay, so Augie made the motion to make this to approve this lease modification. Is there a second? Marvin seconded it. Is there any discussion? Appearing to be none. Let's go ahead and just call the roll then. Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Terry?
Christine? Terry?
Aye.
And you voted aye?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Okay, so next is our 9D is staff handbook policy revisions, and that's either Sarah or Kara or whoever wants to explain what you're asking us to do here.
Yeah.
Either one of you, any of you.
I'll talk about it. So our initial policy gave employees who met certain criteria up to 50% of $2,000 a year in education reimbursement. But in addition to that, they would also receive a wage increase after reaching a certain point in their education, and then after receiving a master's in library science, they would receive another wage increase. But in addition to that, the state requires that certain positions in libraries in Indiana be certified. And in order to receive a certification, employees have to successfully complete 9 to 15 credit hours of college level library science courses. So the issue that we found was twofold. One, that we felt as though if this was a requirement for their job, we should be reimbursing it at 100%. But then in addition to that, because we had these pay increases for employees that met these certain educational requirements, they would get this wage increase when if we hired somebody with the same level of education, the same amount of experience, if the position didn't require that, they would not receive that increase of wage. So there was a lack of equity between employees under the same pay grade. So in order to remedy that, we've proposed that we pay for all of the certification courses at 100% and then take away those wage increases. If somebody wanted to continue past the 15 credit hours that are required for certification, then it would fall under the same old policy that they would receive up to 50%. They would get 50% of up to $2,000 per year if they wanted to continue on to receive their master's.
So what we're basically doing then, Kara, just look at this. It looks like we're revising policy 26.3 to pay 100%, and then we're going to of this required these required courses. So you're going to eliminate policy 26.4. You're just going to delete that altogether.
Basically, yes.
Right. Okay. Very good. And basically, so I assume if you wanted to give somebody a pay increase, you always can. That's just based upon what your normal performance thing is. It doesn't do the automatic. If you get this certification, or if you get this,
correct,
whatever it is, you get this next wage. If you get your master's, you automatically get it. So it eliminates that automatic, and so you compensate them the way you normally would, just based upon
the job.
The job. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So first of all, is there a motion that we approve this this proposed benefit policy, employment policy change? And Christine makes the motion. Is there a second?
Michelle.
And Michelle Michelle's voted. All right. Made the second. Is there a discussion? Any questions or discussion? Hearing to be none, then if we're ready to vote, Marvin, I hate to keep doing this to you. Usually what I would be doing here is we'd be rotating this so you're the same person is not the pressure of voting every time. But for make it easy for Rachel to control the mics, we'll just keep it this way. So Marvin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Aye.
Terry?
Terry.
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Then the last, so that passes. The last item of our official new business, Christine, is our resolution to declare excess withdrawn library materials. Is there a motion with
Well,
respect?
I actually have a question about that. Are we doing it this month? Is it a necessary motion?
Well, it's in the board packet, and I'm surprised that we actually withdrew. Although I think you're approving February and March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So although there is one for April, and I'm not sure why, but there's one there. I don't know what we would have been withdrawing.
Okay. If appropriate, I will motion that. E. We sell materials to the Friends of the Library, and this would exclude items selected by the library staff for library sales, and also include computer equipment declared as excess.
Perfect. Is there a second to that? Marvin seconds it. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, okay, we'll do the roll call. Marvin?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So let me ask first, is there any other official business to come before the board?
I have a question. There was some discussion, well, I was reading while I was in Arizona about us providing some space for first responders or so on, children, kind of a space for daycare thing. And I don't know if that's still on the table. If it is there a liability issue that needs to be addressed up front?
We have not been called upon. We got asked really early. If we'd be interested, and we said yes, and it would be our meeting rooms, and because our meeting rooms are not accessible to the library proper, so we could set aside a meeting room and restrooms. I think if it had gone forward, we would have asked for some kind of statement of liability, but it hasn't, and I don't know that it will at this point. So we were just ready to do it if we needed to be.
That was a good question. Are there any other business? If not, let me just, the next, Marvin, I will, go ahead. But actually, before I do that, let me just, go ahead. Because
I just had a question for Deb. Is the library eligible for any of the CARES money?
That's no, because we're a government agency. Is that right, Kara? Kara,
Yeah.
we went through that. Actually, I'm participating in a webinar tomorrow that's a Purdue-based webinar about whether or not there would be funding out there for government and other nonprofits. So we're going to take a look, but not the CARES money. We're not.
Okay. I'm good.
All right.
I have a question for Deb also.
Go ahead.
Deb, you're obviously just getting buried with electronic communication and Zoom and email and text, probably everything else. If we would need to get in touch with you, what would be your preferred method?
It may be easier to send me an email to start. And then I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback again. Thank you. And then we can set up a phone call if we need to, because I'm happy to talk to you. I realize email is not always the best way to do it, but if you call my office number, it'll route to my cell phone, so you'll get me one way or the other. Does that help, Terry?
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe under other business too, before I go to hearing of visitors, and we don't have any, but let me just maybe reiterate what I mentioned last week when we did the practice call. And I think most of you are on the call, staff, but just on behalf of the entire board, we'd like to really thank all of you. And if you can pass it along to to your supervisor, to the people underneath you, and kind of let it filter down, hopefully, to all the staff, that we very much appreciate everything you all are doing. We know, and some people think it's easier to work from home, but we know in your situation, you guys have really been coming above and beyond the call. You've been doing a lot of this during hours, after hours, weekends, and whatever. And we appreciate sincerely everything that you are doing, you have done, and you continue to do. And we know that a lot of you, either yourselves or your families, your closer families, or your remote families are suffering. There's a lot of healthcare issues and a lot of concerns and everything else. And you've got children at home and spouses and partners and everything. And everybody's going through a whole lot right now. So we just really appreciate everything that you all and our entire team is doing for the library, for the community. It's really been great. And Jim, we also appreciate everything you and Bob have done. You guys have been, we much appreciate everything you guys are doing. And we don't say it enough, I don't think, but we do. And we know that you're all standing by to help the community. And we've enjoyed the first quality products you've put out and you continue to do. So just on behalf of everybody, thanks so much for all that you're doing. And you are appreciated. and we do see it, and the people that we represent in our various boards and agencies that have appointed us appreciate it as well. So just here. And we would all give you a round of applause if we could do that, or we'll do the silent applauses. And then with respect to hearing of visitors, we did have this process if there were visitors, but I think we scared them off when we asked them to identify themselves. So I don't know. So but I'll just be quiet for a second. Just say, are there any visitors that would like to address the board? And hearing none. We did receive, and hopefully you had a chance to review them, but in our board packets, there are updates from various staff that attended various conferences around the state and around the country before everything locked down. And so there's some good reports and good information that's included in the back of our packet. So hopefully you've looked at that. If not, you should look at that. And let me also just announce that our next board meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 18th. Notice the May 18th, it's a week earlier because of the, I guess it's Memorial Day is the following week. So we're doing it May 18th. And we're scheduled to meet in person. So right now we're planning to meet at Keller Park in person at 4:15. Obviously, if we need to change that to a Zoom meeting, this I think worked out pretty well. We could do this, but unless the governor's order is extended, I think we're going to have to meet. Jim, I would think we'd have to meet in person unless the governor extends this Zoom meeting thing. So we'll plan on meeting in person on May 18th. I think, Deb, is that your understanding as well?
Well, yeah, I actually moved all the meetings to Keller Park because it's a larger space, and I think it's much easier to distance when at Keller Park in that space than it would be at any of the branches. And I think as we begin to think about other services besides curbside delivery, which we're working on right now, our next thought would be to put some of our computers in our meeting rooms. And so I don't know that our meeting rooms will even be available for this kind of a meeting. So we're just kind of pivoting to Keller Park. I'm happy to do this. Again, the governor's going to have a big announcement on Friday with next steps. So we'll see what that brings, but we're happy to do Zoom, and I'm glad this worked out. It was less painful than I thought it might be. So I want to thank you all for.
Sure. And yeah, and by the way, if we do meet in person, you don't have to discuss it with all of us, but if anybody has any special health needs and you want us to try to isolate you in any way in the room, if we do it, I mean that sincerely, not trying to make fun, but if anybody needs us to try to do anything, so if we are meeting in person, but you need us to isolate you in the room and in some way, you know, we can certainly do that, or try to do that. If you let Deb, know in advance, just give her a call or send her an email. And right, I mean, Deb, anything we need to try to do to help accommodate anybody's needs here, obviously I know Deb, you'll do that.
I suspect that social distancing will be going on for the next several months. And so we may very well be able to do this via Zoom for a while, but we'll see. I put it at Keller Park just because I don't know what's going to happen.
No, that's right.
So, yeah.
But if anybody's got any special needs, you want us to try to put.
Absolutely.
We can certainly do that. And anyway, so that's that. Anything else before we adjourn? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Somebody raise your hand. Okay, Ann made a motion to adjourn. Second, Sarah, you can't do it. Michelle seconded. I saw you. I guess we should go through one more last time then, just to do this properly. In accordance with our procedures we adopted. Marvin, you approve?
Yes.
Michelle?
Aye.
Augie?
Aye.
Christine? Christine said.
Aye. Oh.
Terry?
Yes, aye.
And
Aye.
I vote aye. Very good. We are adjourned.